Hey, what's up y'all? This is William, the permaculture consultant. Now, a while back I made a video called the 2-ingredient compost pile. Y'all absolutely love that video. In the comment section, a lot of you guys were asking, how do I do this with animal manure? There are a bunch of different animals listed, but today I'm going to show you guys how to do that in the form of a 3-ingredient compost pile. Now, before we get into that, if you need any permaculture consultations, if you need a plan on what to do and when to do it on your homestead, hit the link down below, email me. And if you need any permaculture Q&A questions answered, if you have a specific question you're wanting answered, if you're not sure how to do something, or if you just want some more clarification on something, then leave it down below in the comment section with the hashtag permaculture Q&A at the beginning of it. Also, June 8th is another Homestead meetup in Gladewater, Texas. It's going to be at Grumpy's Garden Club. I'll leave all the information down below. But me, Emily, and the baby are going to be there, and also the Texas boys. So we look forward to seeing everybody. We're going to be doing these pretty often. Love to see you guys there. There's also going to be a market there as well. I haven't seen it yet, but I heard it's off the hook. So look forward to seeing you guys. Let's get into the video. Now for our 3-ingredient compost pile, it's going to consist of basically the same 2 first ingredients. Like out of the 2-ingredient compost pile, we're still going to have our greens right here. Now this is 3 like heaping wheelbarrows full of greens. We might need to get more. If we do, I'll let you guys know. And then these are 3 old rotten hay bales right here. That's probably too much or more than what we need. I'm not entirely sure yet. We'll figure that out as we go as well, and I'll let you guys know. And then right here are 8 buckets of cow manure. Now I went and got the cow manure out of the field. It was in varying stages of like age. Some of it was dry, some of it was fresh. But I filled all the buckets with water and let them soak and saturate because I want them to be completely rehydrated before going into this compost cage. This bale right here is absolutely soaked in water. This is hay. These 2 bales are dry, so those are gonna go in as well. I'm gonna take preference over this one, this first top one right here, because it's in the furthest stage of decay. And then right here, these are all fresh cut greens. So literally within hours ago, they were cut down and just stacked up in this pile right here. And this is our compost cage. This is just old woven wire fence that I've taken. It's 4.5 feet tall and it's about 4.5 feet across. We need at least 1 cubic yard within this compost cage for this whole thing to work. We need at least 1 cubic yard, no greater than 3 cubic yards, because the can spontaneously combust. And if you're wondering, over here is actually a compost pile that I have curing. This is the half ingredient. So this is technically 3.5 ingredient compost pile. Oh crap, my pants just got caught on the fence. There we go. This is technically the 3-ingredient compost pile, but that half ingredient, which isn't absolutely necessary, but it does help quite a bit, is the old curing compost that we have. So let's get into it. I'm going to show you guys what layers to stage everything, like the proportions, all that type of stuff. Alrighty, so the first thing we want to put in our compost cage is the carbon, which is going to be our brown material, which in this case is going to be our old spoiled hay. Now, if you don't have this, you could use straw, you could use leaves, you could use bamboo leaves, you could use any number of carbon sources. If you want this to be good finished compost, then try to stay away from your wood products, because those are way too high in carbon. If you want a simple list of like medium carbon sources, just Google it, and it should be pretty easy to find. There's plenty of lists telling you what's a good carbon source and stuff like that. Just try to make sure it is a clean source if you can help it. Make sure it's not, covered in all kinds of pesticides, herbicides, like Grazon. I remember that was a big issue the past couple of years. It stopped seeds from germinating, stuff like that. And whenever you do add the carbon to the bottom of your compost pile, you also want to make sure you add plenty of water, because you want everything absolutely saturated. And keep in mind that this all will compress down quite a freaking bit. So we're going to make sure we fill this thing all the way to the brim with material. So carbon is going down first. And the reason I like using this woven wire fence and everything is because these squares give me a good barometer of how much of one particular material I'm using. Also, keep in mind it's always better to overwater than underwater. Because of this type of structure, any excess water usually will just seep out as the first sitting process begins. So don't worry about using too much water. Ideally, you would have another person right next to you continuously spraying with the hose as you're adding material. That would be a really good setup. And you do want to make sure you break up any clump. You don't want any clumps within your compost pile, because those areas, those clumps will go anaerobic in the center, and those are breeding the wrong kind of organisms that we want in this type of compost. There we go. So far we are about 3 squares high. So at this point, I'm going to add my green layer. This is going to be my fresh cut vegetation. If it's not fresh cut and it had to dry out for a while, that's fine. Just make sure you rehydrate it with water. Right now it's at the perfect moisture consistency at about 50%. And believe it or not, a lot of this is, some of it is grass, but a lot of this is clover from the cover crop in the garden bed. So that's just another benefit of having a cover crop in your garden bed, is it gives you plenty of green material for your compost whenever you are making compost and stuff. Probably the easiest way to harvest your green material is by using a mower with a bagger on it. It also gives you really good consistency of material as well, like it's all finely chopped, so it breaks down pretty quickly, but you do run the risk of that, again, clumping together and going anaerobic in the middle. So there's a combination of wanting finely cut material, but not so fine that it just clumps and goes anaerobic. That's one of the dangers of using sawdust, actually, is that it's really hard to, it does bring in enough surface area for the nitrogen to break it down, but the downside is that it clumps together and does the same thing again. We want to avoid anaerobic conditions at all costs. Now, one cool method, or one cool reason for doing the hot composting method, is that weed seeds, like I'm adding all these green material and that hay, you might be concerned with, you know, getting seeds in your garden and stuff. Well, this thermophilic process of composting, this hot composting method, gets rid of weed seeds, and it also kills the pathogen microbes. The pathogen microbes can't stand high heats. The good guys can stand high heats. So we're gonna make it super hot in this center. Usually it could range anywhere between 135 degrees to 170 degrees. If it goes past 170 degrees, you need to flip it, because it's getting to the stage where it could start burning alcohol vapors that are being produced in the very center of this place, or in the center of this compost. Anyway, that's getting too complicated. The point is to still keep this compost simple. We're just adding 3 and maybe 3.5 ingredients to this compost. So the next thing I'm adding is our saturated cow manure, and I want to make sure I, you know, spread it around as evenly as possible. That's 1 bucket right there, and I'll rinse this with water and get all the manure out of that bucket. There's 2 buckets right here. We'll go ahead and do 1 more bucket. There we go. Now we're going to be adding some more hay, some more carbon on top of this. And we're just gonna basically follow this pattern until we get to the top. And then the very top of this pile is actually going to be carbon. So you want a carbon bottom, the hay, and then you want a carbon top, which is the hay as well. Now you might be wondering, okay, well, what if I don't have cow manure? What if I'm not specifically using cow manure? This is where it's gonna have to, you're gonna have to play with it a little bit. Let's say you're using chicken bedding, then I would use equal amounts depending on what you're using as the, if you're using pine shavings as the bedding, still use it. Don't let that stop you from using it. It's just not gonna be as fine of a finished compost. But you're gonna use probably equal volumes of brown, green, and that chicken bedding. Same thing with your goats. If you have goats or chickens, or I already said chickens, but if you have goats or rabbits or sheep, and there's an area where you can collect their manure, like someplace where you give them hay pretty often, use that stomped on, pooped on hay that's around the ring, and use that in here in equal volume amounts as your green and your brown material. So hopefully that helps. If you're using horse manure, then be careful about your source for horse manure, because people give all kinds of stuff to their horses because they're pets and not necessarily livestock. So be careful about their source. but you're going to want to use maybe a little bit more horse manure just because it has less nitrogen. Again, search a list of the nitrogen to carbon ratios of your manure that you're trying to use, and that'll give you an idea of how much you should use of it. Higher the nitrogen, the less of it you can use, but the more you need to spread it out. The lower the nitrogen, the more of it you need to use. And if I haven't said it before, this process, this pattern of the brown, the green, and the manure, I'm just gonna repeat that over and over again until I get to the top. And that's basically, and then we'll talk then. Alrighty, so now that I'm a little bit above halfway on this compost pile, I'm going to add the half ingredient, which is this compost pile, which is over here curing. So I know that this is way more developed than what this is, but this will help boost and kickstart this with a bunch of microbial activity. So we're gonna go ahead and put a couple of scoops in there, and then we'll go ahead and continue on with the layering, because the next layer that goes on top of that will be the manure. And all that's going to do is help introduce some of the microbes that we're trying to invite and reproduce in this compost pile right here. So that's about how high we are on the compost pile right now, about 2 squares away from the top. I need to go harvest some more green material, so we're gonna go do that. I use the scythe to do so, just because it keeps it whole. It's easy to manage, easy to harvest afterwards as well. If you guys like this scything content, then go check me out on Instagram. Right now I'm on day 18 of continuous scything until scything goes viral. So if you'd help me, can't even talk. If you'd like to help me out before it gets, you know, ridiculously hot out here in Texas, go ahead and share and send that to as many people as you know, please, because it is getting hot and I'm tired of scything. Alrighty, so I got my greens. Dropped about half of them right in front of the pile. But this will be my last application of green material, and then I'll do 2 more buckets of manure just because that's how it worked out. And then I will do a final carbon cap. And that carbon cap is going to be heaping over this compost pile because everything is going to shrink drastically. You'll see that in future videos. I'll keep you tracked. I'll keep you guys posted through the whole process. And now I should also say there's no hard and fast rule on these layers. The reason I like to do it this way is so you can see exactly how much of each material you're adding at a time. You could do just complete blocks and thirds. It'll be harder on the flip next time, but you could do it that way. You could do alternating shovelfuls or bucketfuls at a time. You could completely mix it up beforehand and then throw it in this cage. Whatever is easiest for you. This way is just the best visually, I think, for like video and stuff, so you can see the individual layers. But you can apply all this. I mean, you could have 3 people shoveling in 3 different materials all at the same time if you wanted to. All depends on what you have access to and how much labor you have as well. And this is still the second bale. Definitely going to be busting in to the third bale though. Probably just only a few flakes from the third bale. Now I'm going to add a ton of water to that because it's so dry. Alrighty, so the entire pile is assembled now. We have our carbon cap on top, everything is fully saturated, and now all we have to do is cover it with a tarp and let it sit for 4 days. So today is Tuesday, we're gonna let it sit for Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. On Saturday, we will flip this pile. I'll show you guys how to flip it. It's gonna be the same process as the 2-ingredient compost pile, but with that 3rd ingredient, which makes it just a little bit gummier in the first couple of flips and stuff, but this will overall be a better product as well. So remember, just cover it with the tarp. We'll flip it on 4 days. If you guys have any compost questions, leave them down below in the comment section. Hopefully this was helpful for you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, we'll see you.